Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 17, How the Art Heals the Mind and Enhances Our Overall Well-Being and Life Satisfaction. So a friend and colleague of mine, from where I teach at Champlain College, sent me an article along just thinking of you, and I jumped in to check it out, and it's amazing. We keep saying this, that the universe just kind of, when we're receptive, like this open baseball glove, stuff just comes right to you, via somebody else or whatever like that. And I was thinking about the next podcast and this or that, and then I read this and I was like, aha moment, light bulb. Let's talk about how art heals, because art is so incredibly healing. And if you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to listen to this one, I'm not creative. Of course you are. We're all creative. Again, it's about being receptive. It's also about, it's not always so deep. It's a time thing too. In order to allow, in order for creativity to happen, there's certain things that need to be in place. One of them is creating, quote unquote, the time to let those creative juices just flow. Also to, minimize distractions, be in a simple environment. We'll all get to that in just a little bit. But for those of you, we'll say closet creatives or creatives in denial. That's a good one too. Of course you're creative. We're all creative. And especially, like Ben Franklin says, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. When we're pushed to create and problem solve, we definitely find a way to do it. And think about a class of kindergartners wildly finger painting on a table, not too concerned with where it's going or what it's looking like or anything like that. And if any one of us went up and asked this class one at a time, are you creative? Right away, you would get an enthusiastic yes, and or they might pull you, along with their paint covered hand over to the table and just show you with a big huge smile on this fabulous product that they have just come up with. They would not doubt for 1 second that they are creative. So obviously, something is lost there along the way, and it's, let's say, misplaced. Because any part of our authentic selves is never really lost, just misplaced and, covered up and maybe being masked by defense mechanisms or, whatever like that. And do you know that the older I get in my wonderfully seasoned 56 years, it becomes more and more clear to me how important it is to truly meet people where they are, not just say it or think we are, but actually really connect with them exactly where their own headspace is. And that's kind of like a simple yet profound sort of statement, right? Because I think we often walk around thinking we're doing that, myself included. And, it becomes very apparent when we actually do, because, sort of the aha light bulb epiphany thing is just so evident when we really truly connect with someone exactly in the place where they are in their lives. And art is, I don't know if I can think of a better way to meet people where they are than meeting, with the art thing, the art as a medium, as a vehicle. And certainly we're going to discuss, really any way to sort of rewire our limbic systems into being calmer. No matter how we do that, is advantageous, right? Because neurons that wire together fire together, and we can get unstuck from our emotional wounds, even amp it up to full blown trauma. We can heal from all of that. So we'll get into the brain's neuroplasticity also. However, for right now, really the number one jumping out at me about art is that we can't do it wrong. We can think we do it wrong, which is just, all kinds of messages from wherever, right? In reality, this is, our own creation coming through. It cannot be wrong. You can draw inside the lines, you can draw outside the lines, you can, whatever colors you want, whatever mediums you want. Art cannot be wrong. And though that also may sound simple yet profound, I cannot tell you how far that takes my students. And I'll tell you how, when we talk about mindfulness, which also goes with art, so we're kind of feeding two birds with one hand here. As you're all aware at this point, I teach mindfulness in every single one of my classes, cognitive psychology, Minecraft, and whatever else I may need to teach. And the very first day, and you just watch them kind of looking around because they don't know what to expect. And oh, here we go, going to be touchy feely, blah, blah, blah. It's amazing how they come around with it. And by the end of the semester, they love it. And one of the big reasons why, and I watch their faces when I say this, realize you can't do it wrong. And in an age where, especially our young adult population, which is the most anxious and depressed group of young adults the United States has ever seen for sure, to be able to hear and know there's something you can take on that you can't do wrong just immediately grabs their attention. I mean, I can't screw this up. I can't screw this up. Especially a lot of them recovering perfectionists and things like that. No, you cannot screw up being mindful. If you start to slide into, all kinds of intrusive thoughts, working their way in, well, you just regroup and get back at it. Well, art isn't different. Art is something we can all do that we can't do wrong. It's just our, it's just an expression of self that can't be wrong. And right there, just that part of art is so incredibly, incredibly healing. And then, of course, we, take a peek at how mindfulness works and mindfulness is about being in the moment, right? And so is art. Art is about being in the moment, right here, right now. And you remember from earlier episodes and with the obsessive compulsive thinking or whether you have any of that or you don't. Just say regular preoccupations, regular. One of my young adult children likes to call it normal stress because she doesn't like the word anxiety. So you've got normal stress, and it immediately brings you back in the moment. So if we're 100% committed to being in this moment, I don't care who's diagnosed with what on the anxiety spectrum. This is what I say to my students: unless you're being beaten with a spiked club, which I don't see, you're not anxious if you're 100% committed to this moment. And art also does that for us, especially when we can really get in the groove and loosen up and be there. And part of this is just art as it is. And part of this is also, third point we're going to bring up here, is the tactile nature of art. So again, finger painting with the kindergartners or finger painting at 56. I'm a big fan. It helps. It actually, from a tactile perspective, can be very soothing. It can also go the other way. Somebody has sensory issues, which means they just choose a different medium. For most of us, that tactile sensation is not only soothing, but it brings the brain, neurologically speaking, draws attention away from wherever the mind went to next Tuesday or 10 years ago or, whatever. For a kindergartner, somebody had a Twinkie that they wanted or whatever, right? It takes our mind away from that place while we're sculpting or painting or doing whatever and brings it right back to the here and now. And that extra sensory push really helps bring the mind back into the present moment to experience the power of now. Okay, point four. I'm also thinking about my students. Again, I have mostly first years, not all first years, but mostly they're in the 18, 19 area. And I think about, this wonderful country of ours in the States. We are very achievement oriented. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I have quite a work ethic myself. And however, it can be too much. And I know that at least with my own students, and I've got quite a few of them. Actually, this semester, four wonderfully large classes. I'm quite in touch with them, quite in tune with them, love them, love what I do, which hopefully they pick up on. And they are so, they have a ton of stress, and a lot of it is, they'll talk about it, the pressure. I would say the majority of it is about feeling the need to produce, and however, whatever that means, might be to make sure they don't disappoint their parents. It might be so they don't disappoint themselves. Again, usually have a handful of recovering perfectionists, and it's about produce, and you know, and moving along the timeline in college and having the right major and the job, and then do I make enough money? And then all the what if thinking starts, and all the not enough thinking starts, and it's very much directly connected to achievement. And the beauty with art, this is point number five. I lost track now. Point number five, I think, is that art, even though there is an end product often, it's not about that though. It's about the process. When somebody is really immersed in art, they often don't even know where they're going. It's not. Most of us aren't out to kind of come up with this another rendition of the statue of David. We usually jump right in to do whatever we're doing. And even if there is, let's say it's somebody's job to be in creative media and design and marketing or whatever like that, they still might have guidelines that whoever's asking them to create blah 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 for whatever product, they still don't know exactly where it's going to go because art takes twists and turns all over the place. That's one of the wonderful things about art, because it's just these creative juices. I like to believe from the creator of all things, myself, just are coming from somewhere, let's say the universe, and they're rolling through us as this vehicle, and they're being splattered out on paper, splattered out in a film or a podcast or a conversation or a fantastic dinner presentation or whatever, a fantastic haircut, a fantastic tattoo, whatever. It's coming from someplace, and it's about the process. And actually, that tattoo thought. This is my own squirrel thinking, because if you don't know by now, I'm a web thinker. Um, my best friend from growing up is a tattoo artist, and though I'm personally not into tattoos, I have such an appreciation for the work she does, and I know that she has a kind of like a basic design and tries to meet people where they are, and she also really connects with them emotionally because that's important to her too. She also knows that she gets and hits a bump and she just twists and turns with it. And she's amazingly talented. And she also does pastels. But the point is, art goes any which way but loose, right? We don't really know. So it's about the process. This feeds into the mindfulness, and this feeds into the fact that we can't do art wrong. And I love that. And for somebody who's walking around very shame based, which many of us are, this right here in a nutshell is how art can be incredibly healing, because not only can we not do something wrong, we can't make a mistake doing art. This also means we can't be that mistake. Okay, moving into point number 6. Again, I'm not linear, so I might say 6 or 7 twice, or who knows, and who cares? It's just another point, right? So as far as the healing the shame. Now, obviously, it's more complicated than this. Disclaimer: doesn't mean to not do professional treatment, or if somebody needs medication. Nobody's saying that. Yet when we're walking around shame based and we're immersing ourselves in art, it's about the process and self expression. Slowly, that person who may be walking around with such defenses up, if you remember all the hiding places shame can hide, it can hide as arrogance, it can hide as elitism, it can hide as all kinds of things. If somebody's down on their self worth due to shame and they come up with something fabulous, again, it only matters what you like. And it's just a bonus if somebody else walks by and says, wow, right? It really can only go good places. So these defenses that aren't healthy, right, can begin to fade away. And therefore, when we become more unguarded in a healthy way, that means, with safe people and all of that, not letting our guard down when we're still, vulnerable and in a fragile emotional place. When we're, getting in a better place, when we can drop the shield, metaphorically speaking, the love comes in and we grow, and all the beautiful colorfulness of our lives, can come back metaphorically, because art is so colorful. I didn't even plan that. That was good. Okay, I think this was point number 7. I guess I'm not great with the numerical lineage here. So that rolls us right into, let's just say, point number 7, or maybe 7.5, that because it helps us to, drop the unnecessary, unhealthy defenses and kind of bring the walls down, it also helps us to see who we are. Because when we've been bottled up and blocked off, we can really lose track of who we even are. I don't know if you can be, 25. Not that I think any of us know who we are, 25, truthfully, but that's just my opinion. Let's say 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 on up. We can now really kind of get in touch with our authentic self and see who we truly are. And of course, this can be true for any of us who have, kind of misplaced our authentic self along the way for just a gamut of reasons. And one example I'm thinking of just in the moment, because it's just really clear, is anybody who's gotten, wrapped up in a struggle with addiction. Because, anybody who's a therapist or works within the addictions field knows that somebody can walk in who's, 45, 55 or whatever. And one of the first questions, an addictions counselor will ask in the intake is, what age did you start using? Because somebody could have 6 PhDs or whatever and be super intelligent. Not that I'm saying education necessarily makes us, we the ultimate kinds of intelligence. So I want to make sure I cover myself there for sure because I really believe that the person who's 50 or whatever and addicted who started using at 12, well, guess what? Guess where they are emotionally? That 50-year-old is 12. And so that's one of the first questions that a good addictions counselor will ask. And again, in no way are we saying making, painting a picture is going to just heal that. That's not what we're saying at all. However, it can be a very, very solid therapeutic tool to complement the talk therapy and all the spiritual work that goes along with addiction or any kind of healing. I know for myself, we with our five wonderful now young adult children, my husband and I consciously chose. I wanted to be home with them. Even of course, I kept a foot in doing something here and there. Basically, I was home 98% of the time and loved every minute of it. I wouldn't change anything. And I will also admit for sure with 100% honesty that part of me wanted just a little something for me. And I think I was in my 30s. I don't remember. They were all still young. We were flying around to baseball games, just really in that kind of nutty, very a lot of buzz going on. Again, fabulous. I wouldn't change anything. I loved being home with my kids. And I forget, I got into decoupaging, and my grandparents were incredibly artistic. My grandmother, painted. My grandfather was an architect, and I don't know, maybe it came from the gene. I don't know, but I got into decoupaging chairs, and then it didn't take long before it kind of like it was like it picked up momentum, and so I would go get some chair from a yard sale, sand it down, and I just bought paint and started doing the 3D thing, and I learned how to make mountains out of I would get toilet paper a little bit wet and mix Elmer's glue and then paint. And these chairs had 3D stuff all over them with loads of color. And then I ended up making one for each child in the family and my husband, all related to what their personality was. So, for example, mine was winter, and I had skiers and I had mountains and I had the gorgeous colors of actually like today, a very chilly January day with the blue skies. And I got so into it that I would get up early before the kids were awake late at night when my husband was watching television. I'd be over in the corner with newspapers spread all over. And wow. And it wasn't, so much related to any of the actually no, don't even say that. It did. Of course it helped bring anxiety down or just calmer. And for me though, it was about having something of my own that I could just disappear into. It didn't have to be right or wrong. I didn't care about the product. And I got in what Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi would refer to as flow. Flow is when you lose track of time, you lose track of who you are in a good way, meaning there's no one else you want to be and nowhere else you want to be, but right in that moment. Then all of a sudden I'd look at the clock and like 3 hours went by and I had this chair and then I'd have to kind of stop because it was getting late and I didn't want to and put all the tops on the cans and everything. And wow, I did that for I don't even know, probably a few years. Started making them for friends, and it was just having a grand old time. And it really did it for me as far as scratching that itch of having something that was mine, that was just for me. It worked. The art therapy, self therapy really worked. Okay, so let's say that leads to point 8.5 or wherever we are. So what that did for me is I don't even know if I realized I had lost touch with myself a little bit. I did because it was good stuff, all being so immersed in my kids. And we're also very rural. And in case you can't tell, I don't know from this podcast, I am really social. And I have, good friends around. Like my closest women friends at that time were 45 minutes away. And we got together with kids and stuff. It was obviously difficult to get away just us, which we did a couple times a year. But as far as a day to day and kind of thing, it really did help me to reconnect with my own self. So that leads to point 8.5, which we'll just say alignment. And again, that's one of the main sort of, I don't say goals, themes, something we're working towards in Minecraft is alignment, meaning having the insides match the outsides. And we can really tell when we're out of alignment. Just like my chiropractor cousin, Jimmy, my cousin, the chiropractor, would talk about alignment, obviously related to vertebrae. And he would say shoulders over hips over heels. And, sort of the well being or positive psychology, you know, um, perspective of that is having our insides match our outside. So, how we're thinking and feeling match what we're doing on the outside. And art can really kind of, let's say, straighten us up in that way. Okay, so getting to point 9.5, and again, I'm a web thinker, so one's just rolling into the next like dominoes. They may not be in any kind of order for you. You might sort of identify or relate more to one than the other. It's totally fine. And right now, where my mind went is actually way back when I was therapizing, and way back a few decades ago, 90s, yeah, mid 90s, early 90s, something. Um, and I worked with, at that time, small kids. And no, I wouldn't say, I definitely would not identify as an art therapist. However, I had little kids, so I just did whatever I needed to do. And also teenagers. And I worked at that time, because I've done addictions and other stuff too. At that time, I was mainly the child person on the team. So I worked with, my youngest client was 3, and then I had like a 5-year-old, a lot of teenagers. And I would do therapy in a very non-conventional manner. With my ADHD crew, which was a lot of them, I'd be up, I really, literally could be found in a tree up high with somebody, or underneath a coffee table, or anywhere. And with my young ones, I didn't have a lot of 5 and 3s, but sadly, I had a couple of horrific, and an emphasis on horrific, sexual abuse cases with really little kids. One was 3, and I'm thinking of another one, 5, and another one was 7. These are the worst ones I had. So obviously, when anyone has experienced full blown trauma, they have also, especially a child when they're in that, have lost their voice, obviously, and therefore their choice. And kids in general don't have a big voice or choice because of the nature of being a child. Hopefully, a good parent tries to allow for the voice and choice within choices. Obviously, we can't just let them, have it all. We need to be in control. But obviously, we want to really encourage their voice and encourage their choice within the context of whatever the situation is, right? So when a child is traumatized, they don't have that. They expect that they don't have that. They don't even think they have a voice. They also lose eye contact. A child who's super trusting, let's say neurotypical, because if we get into autism and that would change that, which we are going to go there soon. So I'm thinking with this one kid, and then the other child, so young, 3-year-old and 5-year-old. What I did in there qualified for art therapy for me, I guess. I had a creepy crawlers machine. I don't know if any of you out there know what that is. Kind of like, back then everything was so gender polarized. Girls got easy bake ovens, a pink little oven that you could put in your room and make, expensive brownies with in a little pan. And boys got creepy crawlers, which I much would have preferred. But this was great because you plugged it into the wall, and there were 4, the primary colors, green, blue, red, and yellow, right? And little trays with scorpions and spiders, and you could squeeze the stuff like a toothpaste tube into there. So here's the thing: I started that, I think, as somebody, it wasn't my idea, but one of my colleagues might have mentioned, I don't even remember. But wow, did I see it was creepy crawler therapy, and wow, was it successful. Not just with the 3 and the 5-year-old, but also with even up 8, 9, 10. And I thought, wow. And so the therapy would go on for 50 minutes, mostly for children. The 50-minute window is a big one. And interestingly, they slowly tended to take up that whole entire time with these creepy crawlers. So here's why. We have the mindfulness thing. They're in the moment. It's tactile. They could also have a voice, and this may sound so small, but it isn't when you've experienced the horrific things these 2 children experienced that I can't get into right now. Horrible. They got to have a voice because they got to pick the colors, they got to pick the bug, they got to turn on the machine, put it in, and watch it through the little window to watch it be done. Another bonus to the creepy crawlers is that they don't take very long. I forget the minutes, but we did it during the therapy session. So they got 2, even though it's not about the finished product, they did have one. If they didn't like it, they could make another one next week and they could look forward to it. It was beautiful, such a beautiful thing. And when they left with the little scorpion or tarantula or beetle or whatever it was that they created with their own voice and their own choice, this was also a connection, like a tangible connection to the therapist and the counseling session, which also enhanced trust and all of this stuff. Just amazing. And also, from a psychological standpoint, Piaget, for those of you who might know Piaget, the developmental psychologist, those little kids on the 3-5 end were in the formal operation stage of development. So that means, sorry, formal, oh my gosh, meant concrete, erase, delete, concrete, I'm sorry, concrete operation stage of development, which means, they're a 5-year-old isn't even capable of thinking abstractly. So when they have a tangible, little tarantula or bug that enhance their voice and choice and trust in this clinician and in the therapy process, that's huge because that concrete connection is exactly where they are developmentally. And I'll tell you another bonus, which will lead us into point 10.5 or 10.75 or whatever, is these little kids. I'm thinking of the little 3-year-old, she at the moment. Oh my gosh, it's an amazing little girl and so smart. And she was horribly penetrated by her father at 3.5 years old, and just terrible. And obviously no eye contact, and didn't want to talk. And what's great with the creepy crawlers thing, or it could be another form, but this is what I did. I also did things with puppets and other things, but the creepy crawlers thing, when they're making a bug, they obviously have to focus on making the bug. So it makes it acceptable to not have eye contact. I mean, with children, that was always acceptable to me anyway. But they kind of can just be immersed in it, and they actually just start the floodgates open, and they just start talking to you. They just would talk, and out of it all come. She was bottled up like nothing, and it just began to flow, and then more trust, because they get immersed in what they're doing, kind of forget that they're talking to you. Kind of like when you're driving teenagers around in the back seat, and after a while they forget that you're in the front seat and you can hear them, and they're talking about everything you probably really don't want to know in the back because they forget. Well, that's the same effect with art. And I also found that to be true with teenagers in a different sense, with doing art or doing something that they could occupy them in therapy. They were much more apt to talk when they didn't have to make eye contact. And this brings us to point 11 or 11.25 or whatever with the eye contact thing. And I think I've mentioned before that our oldest daughter's on the spectrum, and she's not like the words high functioning. She would like to or identify as Asperger's. Needless to say, we've had lots of talks about the eye contact thing and how those on the spectrum, or she'll say the Asperger's community, which she likes better, have been basically actually, that daughter did a TED talk on this. If any of you are interested in watching that, she talks a lot about how the autistics, she likes that. She said that's how they prefer to be addressed as well. The autistics have been forced basically by the world to live in this neurotypical reality, this neurotypical world, living with all these social norms that make absolutely no sense to them and are oftentimes uncomfortable. And eye contact is one of them. And I remember myself being taught at a young age, eye contact, interviews eventually when you're older. It shows you're confident, all these things. And definitely in the business world, because looking to the side looks like your self-esteem's in the tank, you're not confident, blah, 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 blah. Well, that may all be true in the neurotypical, planet neurotypical, let's say, but that certainly is not true for those who have the gift of autism, and they're not comfortable with eye contact. And when they're made to conform to the world, they're not usually very thrilled with that, and it doesn't usually last very long. And I'll tell you, in therapy, this is a fabulous thing because those social norms go out the window when you're doing something with creepy crawlers or all the other drawing stuff. I also had games in there that worked too, as long as they were just fidgety type mind tricks and not Monopoly, because that would take their mind off of it. But game like Rubik's cubes, that kind of thing. They have this get out of jail free card as far as the eye contact thing, which is so painful for many people on the or with the gift of autism. And that also works for that particular crew. And point 11.5, 12.5, or 13.2 or whatever. Uh, if we think of, stay with the neurodiverse population, like myself with attention, I like to say attention surplus high energy gift instead of ADHD, which is a complete misnomer. In a way, just like when I was therapizing up in the trees and under coffee tables, and those of us, speaking of social norms, that certainly I've had shame around. Why can't you relax? I am relaxing. I'm skiing, or I'm running, or I'm moving around in the backyard with the goats. That's how I relax. Not everybody sits on, relaxes sitting on the couch watching TV or sitting anywhere. And personally, I think sitting is overrated. So when we kind of bust out of social norm jail, especially if you're a counselor or a therapist, with doing creepy crawlers, climbing up in trees, embracing these other mediums for self-expression, uh, the vehicles, that the doors to healing just swing open wide. And just like we bring creativity, like we're talking about now, into all these other things, creativity can come into therapy. Obviously, getting creative with therapy opens the door for healing. So that said, point 14, let's just say, art can get us unstuck. So if we brought up autism, we brought up ADHD, hopefully we're referring as ASHG, or many other ways to be stuck. And we talked about the whole trauma thing. So um, we can, again, meant to be a complement to other things. With the trauma thing, art can really, really, really be an amazing, amazing therapeutic tool. Again, formally therapeutic in a counseling session, or just home, because art soothes the limbic system. Any way that we learn how to relax the limbic system is a good thing. And we can rewire the brain through repetition of whatever it is that's therapeutic and healthy for us. And so learning how to calm down via art can only go everywhere good. So remember, there's the voice and the choice piece. There's also the neuroplasticity, because we've talked about in numerous podcast episodes, because the cognitive psychologist in me comes out, because I love talking about neurons. The more repetition we have with doing art, doesn't need to be the same art, it just needs to be the same, doing art and having that tactile sensation, depending on which one you might want. Some people have sensory issues, certainly the autistics do. To find that art that works for you and stay with it, because by calming that limbic system down, we can actually be released from being stuck in trauma. Again, meant to complement other things. And because for those of you who've listened to some of the things we've talked about with trauma, is that the limbic system is more primal, more primitive, if you will, than the neocortex of the frontal lobe. Our frontal lobe has to do with our higher reasoning processes, referred to as metacognition, right? That's our judgment and reasoning and decision making and problem solving and planning, ability to control impulses and all of that. When somebody's stuck in trauma, they're not accessing the neocortex very easily. In fact, they're pretty much trapped in the limbic system, which is why they're often feeling threatened when they're on the couch in their living room or dorm or wherever, even though that threat isn't imminent. If they're stuck there, they're still feeling it. And another way art can be highly beneficial is because the limbic system, when it's stuck in that, we're stuck in trauma or survival brain, I like to say, we are basically offline from the frontal lobe. So all that rational thinking, our higher thinking, that's talking us down, that we're in our living room, we're safe now, there's a cup of tea here, we're not really being threatened, that rational voice is offline. So instead, we remain feeling hyper vigilant and tight in the chest, and very, 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 very anxious and trapped in the limbic system. And here's the thing, the limbic system is not talked down into a place of calm with language. The limbic system does not respond very well to language. The limbic system responds well to more tactile soothing, and making sure and also getting into the body, like yoga and things like that. And art is a beautiful way to help somebody get reacquainted with um, their neocortex and to help get back online with that rational neocortex frontal lobe part of us that is better able to talk ourselves away and make good judgments, solid, sound judgments, and make decisions and solve problems with more clarity and more accuracy and more efficiency and more happiness. All right, so here are the bullets in the bowl. The main theme, Minecrafters, today is, any way for us, any healthy way for us to calm down the limbic system can only go to all places good. We are better able to focus, better able to make decisions, better for the others in our lives, better parents, better partners, better friends, better siblings, better daughters and sons, because we're our better selves. That's just how it is. We are obviously therefore happier. um, our well being is enhanced. We are more satisfied with our lives. Optimal human functioning is what we're talking about. In art, regardless of whether you think you're creative or not, doesn't matter. Sort of embracing art in our lives can really and truly be a very effective path to calming down the mind and releasing ourselves from being anxious, and even stuck in the limbic system overdrive.